James McNeill Whistler's Rose and Silver, The Princess from the Land of Porcelain, is an example of the hybridization of Japanese and European techniques and styles that is characteristic of Japonism. Completed in 1865, the work was sold to Frederick Richard Leylands to be the centerpiece of his dining room. Whistler was commissioned to redesign the room to better complement the painting and Leyland's accompanying ceramics. The result was Harmony in Blue and Gold, the Peacock Room. The room was ultimately donated to the Smithsonian. The term Japonism was first coined by French art critic Philippe Broutet in a series of essays in the 1870s. He considered it to be the study of the art and genius of Japan. The term was broad and encompassed art, design, literature, and the imagination of France. Japonism has been described as a type of East-West Renaissance, an example of cultural exchange centered around unique Japanese forms and techniques that encouraged imitation and veneration, similar to that experienced towards classical art during the Renaissance. Initially, Japonism was mainly characterized by the incorporation of Japanese objects as props to evoke the fanciful images of Japan. However, it matured into the assimilation of certain stylistic approaches and design principles. At the center of Japanese influence on visual arts were ukiyo-e prints. Ukiyo-e is a Buddhist term meaning the sad world or the floating world. With connotations of the transience of earthly existence, ukiyo-e came to denote, by extension, the frivolous, pleasure-seeking aspects of urban life. Traditional ukiyo-e prints do not contain shadows or perspective. As a result, they have no spatial depths. The Hikone screen shows images disconnected from each other in space. They float unconnected to anything else. However, at the same time, ideas from the East were coming to the West. Western ideas, such as perspective, emerged in Japan. Images such as hokusais use unified space and a single vanishing point, as well as employing light and dark shading. While not strictly in keeping with traditional ukiyo-e practices, hokusai and other artists whose work had elements of European perspective were highly influential in the emergence of Impressionism. The influence of ukiyo-e can be divided into two specific kinds. Firstly, the lack of perspective and linear representation, and secondly, the tonal cohesion and color blocking of the prints. We are able to see both of these elements in Whistler's Princess. The painting has a sense of lightness and insubstantiality that is not in keeping with typical Western composition of the time. The lack of shading and perspective are important in creating this inconsistent depiction of space. Only very minimal shading is apparent on the side of Spartael's face, and this contributes to the insubstantial quality of the painting because her hair, face, and the grey wool behind tonally blend to suggest an ethereal nature to the mind and consciousness. The lack of depth and perspective is obvious in the way the fan and the screen blend together. This is also a use of color blocking. All the creams in the picture are tonally similar and they contain the same quality. What this means is that without the red outline around the fan and the screen appear on the same plane and would be lost within each other. The use of the same cream color and the absence of shading is a significant departure from traditional European conventions of composition, and this helps give the image its sense of flatness and fragility by conflating the screen, the fan, and the figure of Spartael herself. Another example of this color blocking is seen in the creamy peaches that are used throughout the conflation of texture and substance is also seen in the likening of Spartael's skin to her kimono. Both are the same creamy peach, and her hands are almost lost in the folds of the kimono, suggesting that her body is as delicate and insubstantial as silk. These soft rose colors are set in opposition with the blue-gray of her inner dress, the carpets, and the ceramic, as well as the gray wool behind. This color blocking is typical of ukiyo-e prints. Additionally, Spartail's posture is reminiscent of the elongated S-curve postures of figures in Chinese porcelain and ukiyo-e prints, particularly the kabuki actresses typical of these prints. The ultimate effect of Impressionism. On the screen now are various images by prominent Impressionist painters. They show the emergence and transition from imitation of Japanese work, such as Vincent van Gogh's copy of Hirogoshi's print, all the way through to clearly impressionistic images that have those elements of flatness and a lack and color blocking typical of Japonism. Thank you.